First Pick Podcast, picks and perspective with Chris Johnson. Palpable paradox.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
Nice, man. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Connor. How are you, man?
Yeah, I am not too bad at all. Just sorry about the time difference. I always get confused with British summertime and when it's an hour ahead and when it's not and all that good stuff. So
it's okay. I'll take all the blame, man. Like I thought I had done the math and I was like, oh yeah, 7 a.m. is your 4, but it's really 8 and 4. And I was just I was ahead of the game today. I was like, oh, I got to be up at like a certain hour. I was all ready. I had my second cup of coffee ready to go.
Nice.
I was like, oh man, I got to wait. That's all right. I'll just go walk the dog. It's fine.
Yeah, nice one. Nice.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the podcast, man. It's cool. I've been following you for a little while, man, and it's cool to see all of your amazing Strandberg guitars that you've been rocking.
Yeah.
How long have you been with Strandberg?
So I started. Well, I got my first one in 2015, and that was one of the. Do you remember like the OS models?
Oh yeah,
like the OS 6s and the OS 7s. I got my hands on an OS 6, and then fell in love. I'd seen Pliny play his song "Coquille" on YouTube, and that was basically how I got introduced to the brand. And from there, fell in love with the design, and then kind of bought my second one in 2017, which was a red original 6-string as well. And then just through posting videos, I think eventually I reached out to Strandberg and kind of was just like, look, maybe we can work something out together, because yeah. And then for some reason they said yes.
Well, I know why they said yes. I mean, you're a great player, dude. Congratulations on that.
Thanks, man. That's very, very kind of you to say. But yeah, it's been working out really well so far with Strandberg. So that, looking forward to the future with them, whatever that might bring,
Yeah.
So,
Ola's great, man. He's a great dude and runs a great company, makes a great product, and they're one of the more unique products on the market out there. There's nothing quite like that, and so that's something that it's nice when you find something that like you look at Aristides. Like Aristides is like similar in that there's nothing quite like that. All the guitar companies share the fact that we have strings and there's the basics, but like not everybody agrees on like multi-scale length. Not everybody agrees on like the best tone woods. Not everybody agrees on the pickups, but so it's cool when like there's something so drastically unique. And I think that when Strandberg came along, I was like, whoa. And I felt that in Duraneck. I was like, well, this is like the first new thing in a long time.
Yeah.
It felt like that. So kudos to the relationship and to continued success with them.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think when I originally saw them come out with the design, I was one of probably quite a lot of people that was just like, hang on, this doesn't look like a Stratocaster.
Nope.
But it was one of those things where like it just kind of I got bit by the bug, and I just started watching more and more videos about them. And because I originally played Ibanez,
Sure,
wasn't affiliated with them or anything. That's the guitars I learned on. And yeah, it was a big leap to go from like S style guitars or whatever to Bowdens and stuff. But yeah, I haven't looked back since. It's just been so nice that they've like been so gracious to kind of have faith in someone like me, who's just mainly like an Instagram guitarist trying to do something else with platform as well, and the following that I have. But yeah, it's been cool, man. Been cool,
bro. At this point, the pandemic has leveled the playing field, and most of the Instagram/YouTube artists are like light years ahead of the old dogs, right? Like that's the one thing I've seen. So like I don't think it's okay to like diminish yourself to I'm just an Instagram thing, I'm just a like YouTube guy, with tens of thousands of followers that are interested in your playing. So you know,
Yeah.
it's cool. I appreciate your humility in the conversation, but you know, especially now, I think, and who knows what the future holds, but we do know that things aren't ever going to be quite the same again. Like just kind of like in a lot of ways after 9/11, right? Like we have and other world events that we just treat the world differently, and we accept sadly in a lot of ways a new normal that isn't always you know reasonable, but we're interested in safety, so we continue at a certain path. And I think the future is going to be quite a lot more of live streaming, a lot more of online entertainment for a whole subset of the population. I mean, there will always be some version of a live show, I imagine, but I don't know if it's going to look the same. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in an interesting position, like you were saying, with being someone who kind of started on Instagram and YouTube. I've never really played that many gigs and concerts, so seeing this all happen to an industry that I belong to, while still being distant from it in a way, that I've luckily not been affected by it so much. It's pretty crazy. Like I don't know what it is like in the US or anything like that, but the UK government hasn't really offered much support to the music industry, so it's been quite sad to see what's happened to it. So yeah, like even as recently, I was going to go and see Corey Wong in October in Manchester, which is a UK city, pretty big one, and sadly he's had to reschedule everything till next year, even still, and we're like 18 months into this whole thing, and it's still affecting things. So I just think, hopefully, I don't think we'll go back to the point we were at before everything changed. I think we're going to have to adapt, and hopefully just, you know, whether that's like testing or having people double vaccinated or whatever, to get people to fill concert halls and gig venues, or just to be able to get the industry back on its feet. And that might be what it needs. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to start touring soon. So, because I was getting ready to kind of do some smaller UK shows when I released my last music, which was, I don't even remember when I last released music. Was it? I think it was about July last year, maybe. So
is that when Escapism came out?
Yeah, I think so. It was either then or a year before. It feels like a time warp.
I thought I saw that it came out this year, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Okay. Let me check my my own Spotify.
What year did it come out? Let's take a look. You know,
let's have a look. I'm really good at marketing myself. 2020. Okay.
So it was last year. Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good about my music and stuff, and getting ready to kind of, maybe do a few shows or something. And then, everything happened. So it's kind of like I've just been doing what I know that I can do, which is like videos, photos, because I'm really interested in photography. So it's been nice to just be able to take photos of like gear and stuff like that. So but yeah, I don't, to answer your question, I don't think we'll ever go back to normal things for the music industry, but hopefully we can kind of come to some sort of arrangement where we kind of navigate everything weird going on.
Some sort of hybrid approach, I assume, you know, like I think in some ways it feels like there's going to be, you know, so like prior to pandemic, being in the music industry for, you know, well over 15 years and doing a lot of like, I've seen thousands of shows and been to a lot of gigs. You know, I'm very, very lucky. I was a gig whore before I ever even was in the industry. I was just like, oh yeah, my favorite bands, I would buy all the tickets and go to see them. And so even prior to that, and then I got free tickets and I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to all of them. I mean, the first like 5 years, I probably was at 5 gigs a night, or 5 gig, not a night, 5 gigs, 5 gigs a week. But it was not uncommon for me to show up at 3 gigs in a day, not necessarily see the whole gig, but like I would go, living in Seattle, there's a lot of music there. So that's where I was back then. And I would, show up to one venue, drop off stuff, hang out, do a photo shoot, then roll over to the next venue and so on and so forth. And then maybe stay at the last one for the actual performance. And, but what I mean is that, like, I've seen a lot of behind the scenes, right? A lot, like more than even the average person in the music industry probably. And, where the business model had really gone was, VIPs, right? Like, and that's a thing that was like, okay, well, so the ticket price is one thing, the merch is one thing, but if we can raise the ticket price and throw in some merch and, double or triple the cost to hang out for sound check or for a meet and greet and all that stuff. And so, which is cool on one hand, because it does makes some dreams happen for a lot of fans, right? But on one level, I saw some fairly big artists doing stuff like that, where artists that, and those are the artists that I guess you want to pay more, money to go and hang out backstage with. But in a way, it like made them so available that you just had to have the money, and you were so available as an artist. And, it's a great way to monetize your time and everything if you can handle it. But it puts you so squarely in a room of more people. And now it's like, well, I think that's going to be the commodity, right? Like it's going to have to be much smaller crowds for any of that type of stuff. You're going to have like testing going on. There's going to be vaccination cards and all this type of thing. So in a way, it will increase the kind of the overall demand, I think, because not as many people will get into those scenarios probably. I'm hoping, I mean, in order to be safe. So who knows, but it's an interesting place that we find ourselves, and potentially it actually helps older musicians kind of find their way into the more available online monetization of their product and of their persona and of their brand. And I don't know, but the folks like yourself that haven't played as many shows, man, that's what I'm worried about the most of all. It's like, like, can you tell me, like, do you have a band set up? Like, are you already ready to go for tour if it was available to you?
I'm in a position where I could be pretty ready to go because I've got a longtime friend who plays drums, and he's very, very talented. So he's like ready to go whenever I am. We just arrange a few practice sessions, and then I have another guitarist I'm good friends with called Tom Pankhurst, who's another UK guitarist, and we always speak back and forth, like if we ever do a gig, let's play guitar for each other, kind of thing. If that ever happens. So yeah, and then I'd probably just kind of call on a few people to arrange a bassist, and then I'd likely run backing tracks with like all the ambient synths and all that kind of stuff, similar to how a lot of guys and bands would do it, I would imagine. And just to kind of get like a good show that would be quick enough to put together. And I think whatever I try to do, I'd probably mess up quite a lot, but hopefully be a good learning experience to get out there for the first time, gigging my own music. But like I say, I'm in no rush to make it happen. But if the opportunity kind of arises, then that would be good to kind of just dive into it finally. But we'll see. I'm in awe of your situation, and you're not alone. There's a few others out there that I've talked to in recent years too. Like I look at, you having 40,000+ fans before you really ever did a tour, right? Like, I mean, have you toured before? No, not with I've played. I'm sure every musician's done this, but I've played gigs, concerts, and function gigs like years and years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, just playing, like cover songs like Oasis and that kind of stuff. Weddings and
here's
all.
Wonderwall.
Yeah. The deal. But never played any like prog or instrumental music before. especially not under my name. So it would be new. It would be new for me. It's kind of like the whole reason I started this, like doing videos online, is to kind of transition from the online guitarist to someone you'd want to go and see and listen to their music. And that is, it's not without its challenges, because you have a video online, and then how do you get people to go through your links in your bio or whatever to listen to your music? It's hard to get people to transition to become like core fans almost. Like you might get someone who would watch a video or like a photo, but it's a tricky thing to get them to take an interest, like a real interest in, like, okay, let's turn the sound on the phone. Like, what's he actually playing? Rather than just scroll, double tap, or whatever. It's been more difficult than I thought, but I think because I'm quite a dedicated person. Like when I started out, I was posting every day. And I had this formula in my head, not a complicated one, of just video and then photo, just one and then the other and then the other, because I took an interest in photography quite early, and I thought, well, I can take pretty cool pictures of guitars, I guess. So I would post them as well, and they seem to do quite well in terms of engagement, just as well as the videos we're doing. And the other approach I decided to have was, well, let's get people interested with covers first. So I would cover like Intervals, Pliny, Haken, or the usual gang. And I guess the tip for anyone out there wondering how to kind of start this whole, like, an online presence, is to kind of, it's just to have that core dedication just to do it. And even if I had, like, I started with 100 followers, as I'm sure everyone does, even if I still had 100 or 200 followers, like, I'd still be doing it because I like it. That's the thing. I think some people think it's about posting the videos to get the likes and the engagement and to build an audience. And there is an element to that. There is, for sure. But if you take that away, would you still be interested? And that's a question you have to ask yourself, I think, if you're looking to do this sort of thing. Do you actually enjoy the process of, like, working a full-time job, and then after you finish, like, set up all the camera gear, write the song, okay, mix it, and then do, you know the deal. And then if that doesn't get the engagement you're after, are you still happy? And if you are, that's fine. That was how I am as a person. I just take I used to post Dream Theater solos, which you could probably still find of me when I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I'm 25 now, so they probably still exist in the depths of YouTube. Like, just in my bedroom, like, camera audio, of course, on my phone, old Nokia thing. But I just like doing it. They didn't get any views, but I guess I've just carried that through and kind of slowly upgraded, got the camera, got the computer, and then kind of just taken an interest in everything that goes with it. Like, okay, I've got the camera. Okay, how do I use a camera? Like, you got to get interested in videography and photography now, and mixing and production. And there's a lot more to a guitar player these days than just playing it, the instrument. I'm sure you'd agree. It's kind of, you have to have like a multifaceted kind of approach to. It's a really weird profession these days, I think, now that I'm saying it, because it's, if you were a photographer, like, you study photography and you get good at photography, and yeah, you might go to a few different events, but it's like your core value is photography and that's it. But like I say, like, guitarist, you're marketing yourself, so you're marketing, mixing a lot of the time. You're programming drums, which is hard to do for a lot of people.
Super hard.
Yeah,
it's definitely hard for me. That's why I use loops.
Yeah.
What I feel like thank you for outlining all that, because this is a reoccurring kind of conversation and scene that is good to kind of demystify for those that are coming up, right? And because in previous years, Yeah, you would be just a guitar player and you'd have to show up for band practice, and somebody along the line was gonna, maybe you're the leader of the band,
Yeah.
and you'd be at rehearsal a couple times a week, maybe a lot, if you were really gigging. um, and then eventually all those pieces get farmed out. Like eventually you have a management, you have somebody that books, and you do this stuff, and that those positions still exist in the world. But the way the online platforms have emerged, and we're now kind of responsible for all of that on our own, no matter if you have a full band or not. Like, it's like your individual image, even in association with a greater group, is still up to you, to foster a community of people that are interested. And oftentimes it takes some sort of little formula, right? It takes some starting somewhere, being dedicated to the process. And what we see oftentimes is, like, especially the younger folks like yourself, you've grown up on and seeing curated feeds. Like, you see your favorite artists that have prior to you have taken on that kind of full approach. They've learned to be a photographer, a videographer, as well as a fantastic guitar player that knows something about mixing and mastering, and how to capture their sounds on their home recording studio. Most of it's done at home, right? Like, we save our money and potentially go into a studio much later than previous. Like, at this, year, like even 20 years ago, you might do some home recording, but those are just demos, and you're going to actually, save up money, go into the studio and spend time and a lot more money, right? To do something that may or may not turn out as good as if you had it all at home and you could just infinitely sort it out. But kind of what I hear you repeatedly saying in different ways is that, like, I do it because I love to do it. I do it for the love of it, because even if there was only a few people out there listening or tuning in, like there's a part of you that gets off on putting the final project together, right? Is that close?
Yeah, basically bang on, man. Like, yeah, it's just the creative in me. I just have to have an outlet, and whether that be, I've always thought if I would never be a guitarist, I'd probably get very, very, very invested in something else, whatever took my fancy. That's just the kind of person I am. I don't do I don't do things like half-assed. I'll do them and do them well, and then be happy with it. And then, okay, what's next? All right. Okay, so now I need to get better lighting for the videos. Okay, let's study lighting. Goes on and on and on. So it's pretty obsessive. I guess it could be an overdone quality to where it's a bad thing, but I try and keep it in check. And I like you say, like I like doing these days original compositions with a purpose. And like most of the time, like it might be a new guitar that's come through to help Strandberg, market a new instrument, or it might be get good drums with a new drum kit. And it's nice to be in a position where there's value in my original pieces that I get to film and edit together and stuff. Yeah, it's just nice that there's a small audience out there that takes interest. So that's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the whole process of like being so like one-stop shop essentially, and prior to having it be the mainstay of your financial income is such a tricky thing. I can imagine. Maybe you can speak to that. Like, 'cause it sounds like you work a day job and then come home and have to set everything up. So, and I think that's lost on some people too, right? Some people, a lot of kids, that in my position, being an artist relations guy for over a decade, and having a lot of up and comers come my way through the years and be like, hey, so how do I get an endorsement? I'm like, well, it's awkward, because if you have to ask that, then you're probably not ready, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of head down, like do your pay your dues and due diligence, like with your craft, and as you become, a professional, like in your craft, people start taking notice. I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't need help at times, even so, the professionals, but you know, it for someone to grow a different aspect, to kind of break out of working a 9 to 5 and into music or creative land on some level, you know, it often takes a big kind of extra side hustle that takes up the time that might be social in your life, that might be, you know, oh, I could be at the pub having a pint, but I'm here setting up lights, and I'm listening to my 5th video about how to best set up the lights for this particular effect, so that, you know, it's not hard to edit at the very end, you know, and I don't have to do all this extra work. And so there's that type of thing, right? And I'm curious about how that applies to you and how you feel currently, and how it's worked out for you.
Yeah, well, what you said was quite accurate about passing up on the pint and then setting up the lights instead. It's been like that for a few years, and I don't mind it at all. And you're also right in saying it's tough to kind of make any money in this. Like how so for some reason people perceive that like someone like me would make mystery money from Instagram. Like you have a following, therefore you make money from it. But Instagram is quite a hollow platform, sadly, in the fact that whereas like if you had 100,000 or 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, you could begin to happily make at least some income off ad revenue, partnerships, you know, like paid deals, you know, with Skillshare, all the regulars that do the paid, you know, the paid partnerships and that. But Instagram, they have it there. Like you can do paid partnerships and all of that, but it's not as, I can't think of the word, but there's not as much of a backbone for it yet. Maybe they will in future. I'm sure they want to go that direction because it would probably make Instagram more money. So I don't make any money from Instagram themselves, and I don't really make any money from any of the companies I work with. So for anyone who's thinking of doing online music like I do, or anyone similar to me, it's not really financially viable. So that's why I have the full-time job as well. And luckily, I've been able to get into a job I really enjoy, which is video editing at JTC at Jam Track Central Guitar.
Oh, super applicable to your situation. That's great.
Yeah. So I've only been there for about a year, which is cool, because I used to work in a regular 9 to 5 office job, you know, kind of the type, like,
oh yeah,
not even related, terrible, minimum wage kind of thing. And those years, about 3 or 4 years ago, when I was still doing Instagram and everything, they were difficult because I'd have 8 hours away where if I came up with an idea for a video, I couldn't even, I had to write it down on like a notes or something, like, okay, I've come up with this 8-string idea where I go back and forth between heavy and like jazz or something for a song or something.
Sure.
Whereas now, like working from home, if I get an idea, like the guitar's right there at least. I can just jam it 2 minutes and be okay, cool. I can rest. My brain can rest now.
Yeah.
But yeah. It's still very difficult to make any money in my position. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but it's just like non-existent almost. And then like stream revenue is nice in a while, but it's like it's enough to get like a tank of petrol once in a while. It's not really, it's not enough to live off, not in my position. Yeah. So yeah, that's like I say, I'm lucky because I enjoy my job, my normal job, and then I get to do this, you know, after work or whenever. And I'm in the unique position of being able to create lessons and stuff, guitar lessons for JTC as well. So that's really cool because I get to film it, and now I can transfer all of those video filming skills and mixing skills and guitar playing skills, I guess, into making something that would make me a little bit of money through, you know, sales and revenue, that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I answered the question.
No, it's okay. I know you actually did, and that's what's up right there. So I mean, and I know this is like the dream for a lot of people, because I get this question a lot too. Is like, oh, how do I get a gig in the industry, right? And I mean, that's like, that's a, you know, that's a few $1,000 question, you know, like depending on who you work for in the industry. And you know, the gigs in the industry usually don't pay great. Not until you're way down the road or have some sort of skill set that allows you to kind of run a department or whatever, right? And actually be on payroll at a higher level. But those all come with the offset too. Like I've been in that situation, like 15 years ago, I got my gig in the industry, and prior to that, I was my main thing was managing and directing my band around, right? So I was shuffling us around, trying to get us on tours up and down the west coast of the US. And we did that a handful of times. And one time, totally financially successful. We came back with like $400.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like we didn't come back here broke, like, or owing people money. What we had money to put into a band account. But I mean, if you can, that's one of the best music industry hacks there is, right? Is if you can find some sort of skill within yourself or develop something that is useful to the industry somehow, or to companies that are in the industry, right? So, and it can still be difficult to, even once you develop that thing. I know a lot of talented people that, you know, don't necessarily have the personal skills to like work out for a brand, you know, and that's been their barrier, right? They have the photography skills or the video skills or something, but they don't know how, like, either they're too shy or they don't mix well with others, you know. So there's that problem that can be present. But if you're able to be malleable enough, if you're able to get out of your own way, if you're able to develop a skill that is relative to your goals, then man, you are collecting some sort of cash, right, while developing the skill further for that particular style. And by that company or that agreement kind of giving you some boundaries, oh look, this is the style and you have to learn to do it this way and all that stuff, that's only to your benefit, as you said, because then you take that skill home with you and you're like, okay, so the next EP is going to look super gangster because I know how to do these things now.
Yeah.
And I kind of got paid to figure it out along the way, right? So kudos to you for finding a little niche there, because that does, like, that puts some space in there. Like if when I remember the days of being in the band, you know, I spent 8 hours doing something else, working at grocery stores.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I tried to work at a CD store or music store, but you know, they don't pay very well. So I usually have to do something else also. And then you like, you're like, I can't wait to get to band practice. And then you finally get there and you have to warm up and spend 3 hours and, you know, to practice, you know, like 5 or 6 songs or whatever. But these days, you know, I too work from home, and, you know, I'm thankful to have all the gear sitting here. And if I have an idea, I'm like, oh, I can jot it down, but I can just turn on the one of 3 different screens I have here and just record myself doing the thing, or, you know, voice message and keep moving. So yeah, kind of combining your time and your efforts so that they all kind of overlap a little bit, like a Venn diagram, right? And
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think is dope.
Yeah, for sure. It's been nice to kind of be able to do that. And at least at my job these days, like editing the videos, it's still of guitars and that, so it's still all related. So it's nice to be able to, you know, and I get to talk to my colleagues about prog and extended range and
Yes,
animals as leaders. So it's nice to be able to find people that, you know, like at my old job, people would be like, what kind of music do you play? You're like, do I even want to answer? So it's been nice to find common ground with, you know, work colleagues at last, and have them understand you and share interests. And, you know, and they're all wanting me to film more stuff for them because they know that, you know, that I can film stuff and take photos of guitars and all that good stuff. So it's been nice that way to be able to transfer my skills between my personal music and like my work stuff. So yeah, it's definitely been cool. But it's worth saying that to anyone listening, that it's not just been a decision to make a video every day and take a photo every other day and it's been easy. It's been, there's some points where it's been difficult, like you'd get home from work and you just want to sit down and not worry so much about like okay, because I did used to worry, like if I hadn't done a video, I'd get home, I'd be like, okay, a video has to go, it has to go out today, so I'm going to film a video and I'm going to post a video today. But then like you don't even have a backlog of content, so you might have to film 2 videos in one evening, and then like you're done at 10 o'clock at night, and then it's like you're at work again the next morning. So it was very difficult to try and balance priorities, because I've got a partner and she's amazing. She's really supportive when those creative like spirals or like lapses, trances even, where like you're playing guitar, you come up with something and then like 8 hours has gone, you've forgotten to eat and drink, and
Absolutely,
you're getting shouted at because you've not done something you're supposed to. Like that used to happen. Yeah, those are dangerous, but they're good fun at the same time. But yeah, they used to happen a lot. Like I had so many ideas for videos, and I think I'd look back these days, and some of the more viral ones that I've made, I wish I could take away, but
why is that?
Because I used to make some more like comedy videos, which my following and community would understand. So say like one of the videos that keeps going around is where I'm sat with my partner in a video. She's called Zoe, and it's completely like a joke, a skit almost, where I would be playing the Glass Prison arpeggios, and she'd look really bored and like disinterested, and then she'd request to play Wonderwall. So I played Wonderwall, and then she'd be like, "Oh, it's so impressive." And the whole joke is like, you can play these really impressive things and it might not be interesting to a certain person. But do you know like the guitar repost pages that exist? And yeah, I still get credit, which is nice. But we had a really weird moment where we were on holiday in Scotland for 2 weeks, and like we didn't have any signal, we didn't have any internet really. So it was nice to have a break from it all. I wasn't doing any posting or anything. It was really nice to have a break. And Zoe went on Facebook just having a look and a scroll, and there was a video of us that had been reposted and then reposted again and then like reposted again, and like the tag for me had got lost along the way, and the quality of the video was just dropping with every repost.
Oh man.
And it had 400,000 views, and like the context of the video had been lost. And that was really scary, because it was like, oh, this video is so stupid, like whatever the comments were, it doesn't really matter anyway. But that was when I was like, okay, so this can get out of hand if we're not like careful, because we knew people were interested in seeing those kind of funny videos. So that's why I guess we filmed a few just as a joke for ourselves, and we had fun filming them. But when it gets to a certain point where it's like, on some Brazilian guitar repost page with 900,000 followers, and they don't know who me and Zoe are, and they don't care. They just see like this guy playing guitar, and they're like, "Oh, this is terrible." And it was very weird to see that and not even know. Like there was a video out there of us with 400,000 views, and it was like, okay, so we stopped those videos. But like even such as this week, there was someone, a big guitar page had posted it, and it had like 100,000 views. And to some people might say like, oh man, Connor, like it doesn't even matter, because all exposure is like good, no matter if it's bad, whatever. But it doesn't really represent my brand anymore. So I don't actively like say thanks or anything, not in a bad way. I just don't want to advocate those videos to keep going and keep going and keep going. I'd rather, you know, them repost something a bit more relevant, because we filmed that video like 2.5 years ago and it's still getting reposted. It's just internet things, isn't it? You know,
Bro, this is
Whatever.
like this is an interesting thing that like you know, you can imagine. I imagine it with like child actors, right? Like
Mm,
you you do something like look at Home Alone, you know, like
mm,
that kid, you know, I mean, granted, he's a good sport about it these days, but um, like you did a couple of monster movies when you're a kid, and you'll never live those down.
yeah.
Never live those down, and they get cut up, and they're still memeing those movies
Yeah.
every year, you know, and so it's kind of a weird thing to put and then for you this is just like a couple of years ago, and like but you were a younger person and trying something out and you throw it on
Mm,
the internet, and oh, you're like, shit, I can't even erase any of that. I mean, it was funny at the time, but now the context is gone and the
mhm.
magic is gone, and you're not, and I've moved on, and I don't even associate myself with that thing.
Yeah, that's
um
it. Yeah.
yeah, that's rough.
Mm,
That's a, you know, that's a, it's different now because stuff's kind of like evergreen, or, you know, it just sticks around on the internet if it is viral in that way, right? Where, you know, you'd tell a couple jokes back in the day, and you know, there's no cell phones around, like you can tell the joke and walk away, and then like,
yeah.
you know, not have to see it 500,000 times again, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a bit of a shame really, because it kind of, it, even if it does get reposted, it's for all intensive purposes to the person seeing that on their feed. Like if it was posted 16 hours ago, that post is 16 hours old. It's not 2.5 years old as I know it.
right.
So yeah, and like you were saying, you were bang on, like saying it doesn't represent me anymore, and I don't associate myself with those kind of posts. Just just because of like they've it's like a monster that you've lost control of, and you
Mm,
don't, and now someone else is reposting them over and over again because they know their guitar repost page and their audience, you know, not to bash on guitar repost page audiences,
sure.
but they thrive off that kind of semi-viral meme kind of comedy sketch kind of thing, you know. um so it's a bit of a shame really. But at the end of the day, like, Zoe's a killer saxophone player.
Mm,
So, and this whole time, we've just been kind of sat on it like, well, why don't we just like, we did a few videos more recently where Zoe was playing saxophone and they did really well. We were much more happy with the response, because it's kind of like Zoe actually gets to show off her skill as a person
mm,
in the videos,
mm,
and we get to create music together. So that's been really nice, and that's why I've written a single that's probably not going to be out for a while, but it's the first song I've done that's going to have like guitar and saxophone on it. And it's not just arrangement wise, it's not just a saxophone solo or like a saxophone for a minute, you know, like a guest solo or something. It's
mm-hmm.
like throughout the song there's like saxophone parts, layers and stuff. So it should be quite interesting for people listening who like instrumental guitar music, like Pliny intervals, that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
but to get a taste of saxophone as well in there
Mm-hmm.
should be really cool, hopefully. If people don't like it, then that's fine. It's been a good experiment to see how it layers up with guitar riffs and like have saxophones layering riffs and stuff. So it's still, she's currently learning the parts for that. So um, it is done. It's one of them. It's done when it's done, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
That's great though, man. I love hearing about the experimentation and trying to see where you can take it.
Hmm.
And speaking of more current things, tell me about Escapism. What inspired that music? I really like how it starts off in this soft place with the
Mm.
acoustic and everything. And I'm curious about the name and what does it mean to you?
Yeah. So, um, bit of a can of worms on that one, because it is a concept EP, aren't they all? They're all, you know, yeah, everything's got a concept these days, but it actually has got quite an important concept, because to loop back to the thing I was saying about my previous job in an office, I would jot ideas down musically, and I'd want to leave, you know, escape and go home and play my guitar. And I couldn't do that. So I'd have all these pent up ideas and stuff. So the EP is supposed to take place in one day of my life. So the first track is called Restart, because it's kind of like when you wake up. It's kind of like when you hit restart on like a video game or a level or something, you just go back to the beginning. And I had this rhythmic motif of 15/8, which is what it starts off with. And that's like to signify like the home theme, like I'm in my home, I'm happy. So I sampled like, you know, bird noises and all that stuff, because I live quite close to a lot of forest and there's like loads of sounds. So I wanted to involve those, as well as like the acoustic. I used a lot of 12 string on it as well. And the second song transitions to when I arrive at the office. Like it's like the concept is this deep. So that one's called Stir Crazy, which I guess we're all feeling a little bit, you know, with COVID and stuff. But that was just, you know, innocently written. Like I was stuck in the office for 8 hours and I wanted to go, and it was kind of more chaotic and longer, and it went through these different moods and phases, and had this middle section with acoustics and Nick Johnston like shredding all over it, which was amazing. But so that one is kind of like about wanting to leave the office. Noondreamer is when it's kind of like Daydreamer, but I didn't want to call it Daydreamer, because it was kind of like Noondreamer, because it's like, all right, about lunchtime I start to get bored and start daydreaming about things. So I sampled a load of office noises, keyboard sounds, mouse clicks, like chatter, to kind of create this chaotic, like, sounds awful, this soundscape where it gets louder and louder and louder and louder. And then eventually it's just, you have to zone it out and just think about, okay, I'm not going to be here forever. This is just, you know, a momentary period in my life. So let's just focus on the music. So Noondream is it's probably the weirdest song I've written, because it starts off really quite soft in like this triplety kind of feel with 12 string again, layered with electrics and 6 strings. And then it gets heavy, really heavy in the middle. But the fact I wanted it to be more chaotic, because with daydreams, it's like you start thinking about one thing and then like something else will start firing off, and then your brain's going in all these different directions. So it was nice to kind of just play around with like, here's a heavy, heavy, heavy riff, or here's the 12 string again, and then like layer it up and then take it a different direction. And the last song, The Haven, is, you know, it's the finishing work, getting in the car, turning the radio on, which is like the beginning of the song, where you just turn the car radio on, you drive home, and it begins to have that same motif, the 15/8 rhythmic motif, because it's the theme of being at home again. So that I wanted it to be more powerful and kind of like triumphant, like you've done another day, like you've just got through it again. So yeah, like, well done, take yourself home, enjoy the rest of your day, because now the next 8 hours, they're yours to do whatever you want with. So that was that kind of celebration of getting my time back. So yeah, it was fun. It was fun to write. It was really easy because, like I say, the themes were so strong. It was like I say, like a day in my life almost. What was my life. So yeah, man, that's what it was about.
That's so cool. What a great way to capture that kind of struggle that was going on with you, and that tension, because and now you're in a different place, and there was I don't, maybe you can even see this, you know, it's life and music, how, um, you know, usually our most favorite music, either writing or listening, you know, is that there's necessary tensions that get built up, right? And only to be released. You know, some metal music, some more extreme music will just leave you on that tension note, you know, which is
Yeah.
because it's tough. That's like,
Yeah.
we're so badass, we're not even going to give you resolve. You know, we're
Yeah.
you know, we're not, it's not happening. So that's like, that's an attitude. But like in most music that has dynamic, and you follow that kind of, you know, methodology, it seems, you know, I hear and see all these different necessary tensions that get built in the music. And you telling me that story is really cool, because I'm hearing that was kind of a necessary tension prior to the release and the of being able to work from home, literally. Like,
Yeah.
so you have this 15/8 thing going on right now, because every day you wake up, man, I'm at home doing the thing. Is it, are you gonna write, or do you have another EP that's gonna be like a representative of what it's like to be at home?
Um, I've not got any plans for it at the moment, but that's the thing now. I'm a lot happier
Mm,
that I'm struggling to write heavy music.
that's funny.
Yeah, man. But like I say, the only thing I've got planned music release wise is this single that I've been working on with Zoe on saxophone.
Yeah.
And it's got a very special person doing a guest solo, which I won't mention because I've got no idea when I'm going to release it. But
No worries.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully early next year, but I'm not promising anything. But I think I want to go down the route of release a single and maybe, yeah, release it just every few months, maybe, because I want to experiment with the how the best way to release music these days, because um sure, like you might drop an album with 40 minutes of music that granted it might all be amazing, but we're in the internet age of where like attention span is 15 seconds long or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it would, I think it's a shame for smaller artists like me. It would be a shame to put all the effort into doing 40 minutes of music or 25 minutes of music, and then for people to only listen to the first track and think, oh, it's cool, that's cool, move on with their lives. So I'm thinking, because if you release a single, you still get the same sort of promotion run up where you hype it up and all that kind of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a song coming, and then the song comes out and people enjoy it, and it's not too much to digest because the market's very saturated, right? Everyone these days has got a home studio because it's a laptop on a desk, isn't it? So, and everyone can release music because does get good drums, which is amazing, and submission audio, which is like the perfect bass tone, and then you just need to play the guitar pretty well and you've got a song.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone can basically release an instrumental EP or whatever they want to do. So to release an album, it's harder and harder, I think, for people to digest full albums, because things like Spotify and playlists, like people who exclusively just listen to playlists, they don't even search for artists anymore. They just go on heavy metal playlist, and whatever's at the top is whatever's at the top. And if you're not on that playlist, your song's not getting listened to. So there's the other benefit of singles is every single time you drop a single, you can submit every single song for playlist consideration. Whereas if you drop an EP of 7 tracks, you can only submit one song off the release for playlist consideration. So for small fries like me, where if I got on a playlist, it might be 100,000 listens, or if I didn't, it would be 15,000 listens or even less. It's a big deal to give myself every single chance that I've got to get out there. So if I did, that's why I probably wouldn't release another EP yet, because it like I say, it's a big amount of effort to put into writing and tracking all the good stuff that goes with making a record, and then to only have one chance at submitting that track for a playlist, and even smaller of a chance that someone would actually put that on the playlist, you know. So whoever the people at Spotify, whoever it is, the robot at Spotify, what?
Yeah. The AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you're outlining kind of the basic premise for releasing music these days. I mean, that's why you see so many singles, because they may have an album's worth of material.
Mhm.
But you know, like then there's I was just talking to Chris Letchford the other day, and he was like,
Yeah.
we were talking about a similar thing. He's like, hey man, it's weird to release a full album. He's like, I'm from the full album, you know, or EP mentality where it's themed. You listen from start to finish.
Mhm.
He's like, and all that, but he's like, but I'm guilty of listening to a lot of hip hop on playlists. Like most of the music I listen to is in the gym on a playlist. I'm looking for other playlists. Somebody else sends me a playlist, and so
Mhm.
I'm tuned into that. And he's like, and it's more and more rare that even him, somebody that's a fan of the start to finish album and wants people to listen to his material in that way,
Mhm.
right, is also you know, sucking on the teat of the Spotify playlist, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a and I'm similar in some ways, but I really look for, I make a lot of playlists for myself, but and for like yoga, I teach yoga, so like I'm always making kind of different kinds of ambient playlists and stuff for different themed classes and stuff. But
Mm.
the you know, but when I create music, the little bit that I've been doing, I've been creating some hip hop, and I'm working on my own 3-song guitar EP and stuff. And I think about it in theme. I think about it in sequential order. I think about it in these terms,
Yeah.
all the while knowing that it's going to be taken out of context, like at
Yeah.
best, you know. And if you can even get somebody to even, you know, buy
Mm.
into your sequence or your context or whatever, that's cool too. But it's a weird thing to, very few artists can just drop an album or an EP that's like more than a few songs and have an audience that actually eats it up all the way through. And it's, you know, it's rare. And even the ones that do get it, it's probably still in the small percentage of people that are, you know, you might buy the album, you listen to it, you're like, oh, it's great, you know, but
Mm.
then how much further do you go? Because the field is so saturated, as you said, that we have an issue where like literally fighting for people's attention span over and over and over again.
Mm.
Can I know I released a single last month, but I got another one for you. And then it's like, then if you're always got a single to release, that's it's cool on one hand, but then
Mhm.
people get used to hearing about your single every month, and then they're like, oh, before you know it, like somebody else, whatever, you know, there's infinite
Yeah.
amount of distraction.
It's it's a hard balance because at some point we're in an age where you feel like you have to perpetuate your own relevance in just by like I fell victim to it in the fact that I assumed Instagram success meant that I had to post every day. And
Mm.
I guess it's paid off for me in the fact that my goal was to build a small audience, but at what is the cost? You know, what do we perceive relevance as like the ultimate success? And then because everybody's doing that, it's almost like we've got more people making guitar music than there is people listening to it because all the listeners are releasing their own tunes and wanting you to listen to it. Not saying that it's a bad thing. It's just that's like the landscape of the scene at the moment. So it's that's why there's a few that definitely, you know, stand tall, like, you know, like the likes of Pliny, Intervals, Animals as Leaders, all these instrumental guitarists and bands that have seen amazing success. But I think there's a lot of people that, you know, start out on Instagram, release an EP, and then probably feel a little bit lost. Like, what happens now? You know, I've got 5,000 followers and I've 500 listens on every single song I've just dropped. What happened? Like, I thought this was supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? It's a difficult one to kind of figure out, I guess. But yeah, like you're saying with the single dropping, I think the only band that's done that successfully, and probably even more than what they were even thinking they could achieve, is Spirit Box, because Spirit Box is just they were dropping singles, and they were doing, you know, the trimmings, you know, the professional quality music video. Every single song is a 10 out of 10, good tune, standalone, on, you know, just as good as everything else they're releasing. And then they've announced the album, but everybody's already listened to half the album before it's come out. So it's like the hybrid, releasing singles and then half of them go on the album at the end. So there's 12 songs, and I think they must have released 6 or something, and then as singles leading up to it over the course of a year, wasn't it? You know, and each of those singles gets 100% attention, you know, and it's paid off for them immensely, which is amazing, because it's nice to see a metal band do this well in this day and age, you know.
Absolutely. I think it's, yeah, for the artist, that's a great approach to obviously producing great results. Honestly, as a listener, but I'm in the minority, because I like, if it's a good album and it's a band that I'm, you know, interested in, then I personally don't listen to, even when my favorite bands drop a new single, I rarely click on it, because I'm like, nope, waiting for the album. Nope.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Nope. You know, it's like, I don't want to see the trailer, man. Don't. I want to see the whole fucking Star Wars thing from start to finish. I want to be surprised. I don't want to have all this imagery in my face. But I understand, you know, obviously it's a catch-22. It's like, if I don't wow you with it, if you don't see a clip, or if you don't hear a little something and know that it's coming, you know, then maybe you don't buy in, maybe you don't buy the tickets, maybe you don't reserve it, you know.
Yeah.
And like you said, you know, it's like, if you're giving the full attention to each single, then you have, you know, potentially, you know, up to 6 months of like advertising that rolls into an album release, and that's probably financially great. It's probably, you know, the audience building and everything like that comes into it. But, you know, there is a cost. There's a cost of like revealing, you know, there's like half the album. Now, you know, now you have to see now. And I don't even know, again, I think if people are just, you know, grabbing songs off of a full album and putting them in playlists and not really listening to the album, just because they're like, oh, I really like that one chorus and that one song, and that's really cool, and the one solo, and then they just put it in a mix of other things, I guess that's still a little bit even removed from how I want to listen to most of my music.
Yeah.
Because I still think of, but I'm also almost 45, so I still think of like bands like Alice in Chains and you know, Soundgarden, and that's because that was my junior high school era, right? And Pantera and stuff like that, not just grunge, but some of the metal in that era too. Like when they dropped an album, like, you didn't just like, oh, I like track 4, like, not usually, you know, like it was like one of those songs might make it as a single, like I'm Broken made it as a single, you know, it was one of the releases in the videos for Far Beyond Driven, but like the fans would put the album on, you know. We rarely would skip to the part unless we're trying to explain to another guitar player, listen to this part right here, you know, that's different. But on average, we just listen to full albums, you know, with that in mind.
Yeah, the music listening experience has completely changed over the past 20 years, if not more, because like you know, I was just on the back end of the CD era, so I grew up, you know, like, you know, the first CD I bought was Metallica, you know, Black Album. And you'd listen, you know, when you're a teenager and it costs a tenner to buy a CD, you've made an investment at that point. So you have the artwork in front of you, it's physical to hold on to. So you take the CD out, you put it in, whatever, and the first track comes on. And whilst the first track is on, you know, you're checking through the artwork. Oh, what are the lyrics? You know, oh, look at this cool picture of the band, and like, okay, what are the band members' names? And oh, okay, this was recorded in this place. But on Spotify or any iTunes, whatever, the artwork's like that big in the corner, like a little square.
I hate it.
Yeah. So it takes so much away from the experience, like, because most of the time I'm guilty of it. You listen to music and it's the background, you're doing something else. Whereas if back in the day, if you put a vinyl on or if you put a CD on, you sit down with your mates or you sit down on your own, you're looking for the artwork, and that's the main pastime. You're listening to the tunes, which I still love to do every now and then. But even in, I'm guilty, like you're saying, like, do I have 55 minutes or an hour of my time to sit down and do nothing else in this day and age? When it's a tough ask from an artist. But yeah, part of me, I really miss it as well. But we've got such strong tools, streaming services that are pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. Playlists. It's a tricky one. It definitely is.
Part of what I feel like we're outlining here too is so it's been easier and easier and easier to gain access to your favorite artist's music, right? I mean, like I can you can post something right now and like people all around the world potentially can press on it and sample it, right? And that's part of why we get such high drop-off rate, right? It's so easy. Now, if it wasn't so easy, because back in the day when Pantera, Trendkill, and Nirvana in Utero dropped, like I had to drive 30 miles one way to the closest. I live in Podunk, Northern California, but like, so we would drive 30 miles to the closest Tower Records and wait in line at midnight the night. And it was like, they're like, hey, the new Nirvana, new Pantera. You're like, you got to come up. And it's like, so that was an event. Like, it was like, I had to put it in my calendar. I had to get somebody, as a young person that didn't drive yet, I had to get somebody to drive me there, and to spend my 10 spot or my 20 spot and get the thing. So and then, like you said, you get it home and there's a physical unwrapping. The process is slower. And when it takes time to get somewhere, when it takes an effort and it takes patience, then there's a higher level of perceived value, right? And like usually a higher level of care involved in how that's treated. So now it's like, somebody drops me a link and I'm like, yeah, Spotify, cool. All right. I'm like I don't mean to all the time, but like, because I get so many submissions, I'm like listening to that while I'm doing something else, writing an email, doing something else, and blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, cool. Next track.
Yeah.
If it's not grabbing me and pulling me in, and it could be really good, and I'm still kind of like, okay, so they're kind of this vibe. Okay, they like the, okay, cool. Next, oh, they got one of these tracks. Interesting. Oh, okay, that's kind of got that kind of vibe. Oh, it's mixed with this. Oh, the vocals. Oh, it's not my thing, but I'm glad that somebody likes it, right? So, that, and then it's easy to chop off. It's easy to bail on a full length song or video or something like that gets sent, because the sample rate is so high, right? And I think it's probably in some ways akin to like, when there was still music stores before they all kind of mostly closed up, like there was a lot of listening stations. So you drop by and you're like, oh, that's on the list. Oh, and you'd only get 30 seconds to a minute per song maybe. And you're like, okay, I just want to know that it's good, because that was the next step, right? Because we had spent so many times shopping and, well, I think that's a good album. You buy it because it's got cool artwork. And then you get home, you're like, oh man, there was only 2 good songs. And I'm not even gonna burn those onto another CD to listen. I'll just, hear them on the radio or something. So I think that where we find ourselves now is that it's so easy that we don't treat each other's music or offerings with as much care. And because it's easy come, easy go. It's kind of the thing. And that's where, the artist doesn't get paid as much because it's too easy, right? Like the streaming thing, it's all too easy. It's too easy. And there's somebody like holding the platform, the Spotify and the Apple Music and stuff. It's, it rests in like multi-million-dollar, corporations' hands to make it super easy, but yet it's also super easy to just be disregarded. So, I mean, I don't know, in some ways, like you can cast the net wider these days. Like your net is much bigger than had you if your equivalent self was doing what you're doing 20 years ago, like you'd have to play local shows, right? You'd have to play local shows, and you'd have to be to even get anybody to know anything about you, and you'd have to be out hitting the streets doing this thing. And it's just a different thing. But now, like, for you to play in front of 40,000 people, it would take a while. It would take years, right? Even if you were hitting 1,000 people a night for, that's 40 gigs in a year. And that's like being, generous, right? So now it's like, you have 40,000 potential people that are going to drop in and check you out, but they're like, oh, I'm also busy as hell, and I'm like, okay, cool. The new Connor Kaminski, oh, that's rad, man. I'll swing back around to that. And maybe they do, but maybe they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you were saying, because it's so easy to digest and consume music. It's lost its value, not only money wise, because it's cheaper than ever to stream a song. It just means less, like you were saying. It is a really weird thing to do with perceived value. Like, if it's even difficult to get people to even listen to your music if you send it them. Like, you've done back in the day, if you did all that hard work for them, it's equivalent of like, here's the CD, like, I'll put it on for you, like, and then most of the time people, like, they might not even want to listen to it or even check it out, because it's an inconvenience to even put it on, or I don't even know. It's weird, isn't it? It's
and the further out your music taste or what you're making, the more conceptual it is, the more difficult it is, and the more wacky opinions you'll get. Like, just, I make like hip hop for myself and my friends, and I'm starting to put it out, and I'm quite starting to be kind of proud of it a little bit. It still feels awkward to like put it out as a 45-year-old guy, but I still feel like the kid that I was, right? I still feel like the one that is like inspired by my favorites and all that. But and it's one thing for somebody to hear, oh yeah, you do that, oh that's cool, like, and they can kind of like, oh well, it's not my thing, and they can just dismiss it. That's cool that you do it, but they're not really interested in it in that way. It's going to be very few people that listen, that you present yourself to them artistically, and they go, whoa, Connor, like, this is incredible, because like, I know just enough about you. I can hear this is a lot of effort. I can hear that you must have spent countless days and nights like figuring out like which order to put these songs in, and how to even know what 15/8 time signature is. Like, that's incredible. And like, and when I that's the interesting thing. I love hearing your backstory around Escapism, right? Because I was listening to it for like the third time this morning, and I didn't know. I mean, I heard all those extra sounds, and I was like, that's part of why. And it has a cool, Escapism it makes me, I know what it means to me, but I was glad to hear that what it was representing for you. And when you pop up all that stuff, when I pop up on Spotify to listen to it, I don't get any of that. Right.
I know. Yeah.
So there's not even like, I don't have liner notes. Like, the artwork's not big enough for me to like get clues from, so yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. Like, the artwork does have references to stuff in the songs. Like, a little bit about the artwork was that I wanted like an ocean at the bottom and like a sky at the top, and have like a blue and red, and in the middle, and that would be bright colors, saturated colors, and in the middle would be like a glass orb, like like a snow globe kind of thing. And it just that's the thing, like, you can't even look carefully on Spotify, but if it was huge, you'd be able to see there's just like a really small office building in the middle, and it's completely black and white. So it's kind of like symbolism of me compartmentalizing that section of my life into this tiny little orb that's like lifeless almost. It's but like you say, it's tough to even get that, because it's kind of, you put Noondreamer on and it's like, okay, some sounds are going on, and oh, there's the guitars, cool. You don't really get the full story from it just coming up on Spotify, because I'd even wrote liner notes, and the tough call for an artist, me these days, is, do you even do physical? I've not done a physical release yet. It's one of them. It's the investment. I'd looked into doing a vinyl pressing, and the investment is like 4 figures, and it's like, how do I know I'm going to even make that back at all? It's a real tough call. And then you get the odd person who'd message and be like, oh man, can I buy a CD and that? And it's like, I'd love to be able to offer that to you, but if there's only 27 people who actually want to get the CD, rather than, it's one thing to say, oh, is there CDs? And then it's another thing to purchase it, order it, be happy to pay the shipping costs, which could be a lot for someone who's so small as me, who doesn't have the infrastructure to have free shipping. It's a tough one, that's why I've not done physical yet. It's probably something I'd offer at shows, like CDs, merch, but it's got to be digital to make. I don't make enough money from music to be able to invest money back into it, which sounds like I'm not willing to, take it to the next level. But I've been able to do that in, like you were saying, like invest in my own skills rather than paying someone to do photography for me. I'll just get good at the photography myself and put the self timer on, that kind of thing. And rather than paying 600, quid for drums just to be tracked on the EP, I'll just get really good at, programming drums, and mixing and stuff. And I'll just do it myself. I'm going to have to, because I don't have the money to be able to not do it myself,
Right. So there's a few things that are being outlined here that I think are interesting. Number one, there's room for a new type of platform, or for one of these existing platforms to modulate into a better user experience. Like Spotify, anybody's listening, like you need to have like immersive listening mode, right? So that the artwork, it takes up the entire screen, right, and is very clear in HD, and an option to have multiple panels to look through, so you can see album art, lyrics as the artist would like them to be seen, right, and with liner notes and stuff. So I think we're outlining that, and I think that we're also outlining an interesting thing here around. So we've been, as artists, we've been forced in a lot of ways, right? If we want to approximate the thing that has been done for generations and generations now, that we've had quite a few people record music since, whenever that began, right? So it was super expensive in the beginning, just like the computers took up full rooms, right? Like in the very beginning. And now we hold, in our hand more technology than supposedly what got us to the moon, right? So like in our hands, in our pockets. Now, the difference is, like, you just said, you like, instead of spending 600 quid to get a drummer, a real life drummer, who in theory I support, I love my drummer friend. Okay. And he loves me, and I would love to give him 600 quid to do the thing, but that's not realistic. And that's not with, like, and because there's this cheap alternative, and cheap is a relative term, because you spend a lot of time investing in yourself, your skill. So like technically it wasn't all that cheap, but you probably end up spending as much or more, to be honest, like in between your time and buying the software and all this stuff and doing the tutorial, but then you walk away with a skill, right? So there's that thing. But I digress, that when we look for the quicker way to do the thing, and if the whole music is made up of all these quick ways, so all these quick ways, that then we turn around and we say, hey, listener, I want you to value this. I want you to value this in a way that I am projecting. I want you to listen to it from start to finish. But yet the process of creating the art was full of, doesn't mean that it's not valid. Doesn't mean that playing, you spend all this time learning to play and everything. but it's interesting equation here, right? So even though there's talent, even though there's a lot of time invested into it, it's full of quick fixes in a way, right? The whole project. And then the delivery method is also that too. So, and then the consumption is also that too, because that's, we can't get out of it. So it's almost like we have to find a way to slow things down, find a way to at least increase the space and the timing and how we value things. And I don't know how to fully equate it, but to me, it's the name that didn't come up when you listed. You're like, oh, Pliny, Aaron Marshall, but David Maxim.
Oh yeah.
So David, he's to me a really great example of, he's in that same kind of legion, right? And maybe in some ways greater than, because his composer skills are so ridiculously through the roof, right? But he's one of those guys that when you listen to him, you're like, whoa, let's talk about somebody that values space in their music, right? Like I have to stop and slow my speech to even give it justice. Mm-hmm. Right, because it's so immense. Pliny's similar, right? But David is kind of next level artist, composer, person that and for a guy like that to create such high level stuff and turn around and go and put it on Bandcamp and say, just pay what you want, but the art speaks for itself. He's taken his time. He's kind of soft-spoken, doesn't speak very loudly, except for with his music. And even then, it's very well chosen words. It's not just for the sake of it. So I don't know. I don't even know how to square that into it. But he might be a modern example of somebody that is really taking the time and the space and on all the different levels. He's also had to become the same things that you've had to become, along the way. But considering the process, I guess, is an interesting part of what we're speaking about.
Yeah. David's a good example, I guess, because in this day and age where we're so excited to have everything super fast and drums all the way through the song, and the riff comes in at 0 seconds to catch attention. His music is, like you say, it's not afraid just to drop out, space out, and just let an idea be stated and have its time. Another band similar to David is Leprous, who I've been listening to quite recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're from Norway, and they're like a prog metal band, but they're doing more like prog pop and prog rock stuff these days. And the way that they just build is just genius, really. Like, they do have vocals, and it's more of like a traditional band operation kind of thing. But the way that they build textures is just really, really amazing. And it's I was conscious they just dropped a new album called Aphelion, I think that's how you say it. But I was conscious to listen to it from start to finish, and it's one of the most recent albums. I'd never even heard many songs by them before, and I was just like, damn, okay, like that, every song's amazing. And it's just been nice to be able to, even on Spotify, just put the album on and no shuffle, just let it play and just listen and just have headphones on and to do nothing else. And and you get to hear everything, and still it's not the full experience, like we were saying. Like, you don't get the artwork, you don't get the back cover, and you don't get the lyrics and the liner notes. But it's been nice to claim some of that back. Like, it's still possible to do it in a way, and still able to listen to albums and discover bands, which is nice. But it's like I said, I think we're discussing a pretty difficult topic to navigate, because I don't think it's going to slow down. In all honesty, it'd be nice, but I think the way things are progressing, like TikTok, musicians are on TikTok these days, and I think it's just going to get faster and faster. I'm curious to see what happens to the music industry and how we consume music, but I'm not sure it's going to be that pleasant.
It may be up to the individual artist. Like, I mean, maybe it's not going to be a platform that actually does it, but like, imagine dropping onto your favorite artist, and I'll just use David, like drop on, because David's going to release a Below 4.0 maybe by year's end, I think. But I could imagine an artist like him doing something like this, where instead of doing Bandcamp and all this stuff, that you drop onto a really nice website of his own, right? And it's got a dope player built in, and it's got immersive play mode, right? So when you go, okay, you're going to listen to Below 4.0 from start to finish, you can open up and it takes up the whole screen, and it's the artwork. And you can maybe click through like the different things and see the liner notes and kind of do this thing. And especially if you've got, I mean, for me in my studio, a lot of us have a bigger, almost TV screen that's in addition to our laptop or whatever, right? So, I mean, that would be even cooler to put it up on a big screen in a studio and sit through and have that immersive thing. So, you pay in and you can stream and donate to him directly. Which is kind of already the Bandcamp like agreement, so to speak. It's like, I'll pay what you want on a lot of his stuff. And so it may take artists getting, and that's weird too, because artists aren't really, not too many are super into having their own website, sadly, which is, I imagine there's going to be a wave of it at some point. Some aspect is going to be a wave of having better like websites like 6.0, because like we need something that is modern and kind of like almost turnkey for the artist in this way, where it puts you in control and that you're collecting all your own data for the people visiting, versus Facebook and Instagram. They don't give a fuck about your data, about you getting anything out of this, really. Like, you are the bait, and they, everything that they do is about keeping people on their sites and immersed in their sites. And it doesn't matter if it's your page or somebody else's page, right? So that's part, they're playing into the shittiness of what we're experiencing, with the attention span, I think.
Yeah, it's Instagram is obviously, like you say, there's nothing much good about it, other than the fact that it's designed, like you say, to keep you on the platform and just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and just see ads after ads, and in between posts, because that's what matters to them, I guess. And it's a double-edged sword, because without Instagram, I'd have to figure out another way to do what I'm doing, and I wouldn't be sat here doing this podcast without Instagram, because we wouldn't have messaged. So it's and I wouldn't know anyone in the industry, really, because I've not been able to connect with people across the world, at the flick of a wrist, through a message. So it is nice that, because there is a real sense of community, especially like with the instrumental guitar, progressive metal scene online. There is a sense there that there's a community.
Sure.
But it's a tricky one, because, like you say, like the artist has full control. Whereas back in the 70s, like the record label has the control, really, of the artist, of what happens. But now, like, I decide what I want to do. Do I want to release music? Do I not want to release music? But maybe there's not much value to that control anymore. At the end of the day, maybe we've got to kind of reclaim a little bit and carve out a bit of value for ourselves, in a way, because, like you say, Spotify, Instagram, iTunes, they just want people on the platform, and it doesn't really matter who they're listening to, as long as they're listening, as long as they're going through stuff and listening, and it doesn't really matter. It's not the quality of content that matters. It's just how much can they get through, like how much can the listening base of Spotify can they get through, whether it's playlists that just keep going and going and going. It's very tricky.
The platforms are kind of, in a lot of ways, taking the place of having a label. Like, sure, you have all your freedom to upload whatever you want, but as when somebody starts getting successful, or they're very successful already, pop on there, you know, it's good for their brand on one hand, right? But it's like you said, it's so tough to make the transition of like, okay, somebody that's just passing through and double tapping, maybe even following the page, but somebody that actually creating a community that transitions to purchases of the downloads of your content, right? You know, that is more worthy, can be difficult, and they're not trying to help that, because that usually means taking off their site, right? So now there's a way that like, oh, we've got you now, your following is here, and so it's not actually your, you know, it's weird because yeah, they are following your page, but it's not your following, it's Instagram's. Instagram gets all that love, they get that thing, you know, and it's a catch-22. Yeah, I mean, we do need it, but we do need something. The artists really need to find that way to create their own landing page where they own all the where they own all the information that comes their way, and they can, if somebody comes in and visits your site and gives a heart on your thing, that you can immediately, you know, like reach out to them. I mean, you can do it here, but it's different, right? Because you're on somebody else's site. Like if they come to your site to watch your video and everything, then it'd be like amazing if the artist directly reached out. Hey, thanks for saw that you watched my new video. Like, what do you think? Should I do more like this? You know, and have like more one-to-one thing. And then as that interaction happens, that it's all located in your particular zone, right? And it's interesting. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's this guy. Are you familiar with JP Sears? He's a redhead YouTube comedian guy.
Don't think so. Nah, not sure.
He was probably more popular here in America, but he he started out doing like these things called ultra spiritual, and he was kind of he's a yoga guy too, and like workout guy, but he was making fun of the yoga community. Like, how to be ultra spiritual is that you like talk shit about other spiritual people so that you're more spiritual. And you know, he had all these kind of funny skits, but he's his whole thing, his platform is a lot more political now. But I digress on that. Himself is he's been kind of like working, I forget what the other dude's name is, but there's a program called Zion, or a platform called Zion, I guess, that is it's run off of crypto, on the back of cryptocurrency, right? And it's decentralized, but they're trying to make a social network out of this decentralized nodes, so that, you know, the people, the creators, the content creators and stuff, that people would go onto this site will own their own node essentially, and not be like, they can't be blocked or can't be censored, right? And can own all the content, everything that comes their way, versus giving all the metrics to a third party then to turn around and exploit, you know, for their own purposes. So that may be, you know, some hint of like where things are going. I don't know. It's still like in the infancy, and it'll actually take off. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, man. It's definitely gonna go a couple of ways. I'm not sure which, but I was just thinking, like, the industry itself is quite odd, because if you even if you compare something as niche as like the guitar community to like the movie industry, you might have like a couple corporations that make movies, and you have a big audience that consumes them, like people who go to watch the movies. And if you translate that to the guitar community, you have, you know, a couple big guitarists, but you also have a lot of smaller guitarists that are also releasing their own movies, albums and stuff. So it's a weird dynamic, because both people are the consumers in a weird way, or both people are like the person releasing content. Whereas, you know, I can see it going the same way with, it's easier than ever to film a home movie and stuff, but it's far easier than that to, you know, release an EP. Like, I mean, like, look at me. You know?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it is, but like it's easier for those that are able, right? That have some sense to do it. It still takes. I mean, what you've done with your music is monumental efforts. You know, it's not like, I mean, to you in some way, you know, you already have the skill set and you're already you've been going at it for a while, right? So it maybe you absorb some of the cost that you don't see, but somebody stepping in that's barely involved, you know, in recording and stuff, they look at the task list that you have to create your last EP. I mean, they'd probably be like, oh no, I'm good. I'll just go play in my bedroom and go to the pub for a pint, you know?
Yeah, I guess that separates quite a lot of people in a way.
Yeah.
It's similar to what you were saying about the endorsements thing, right at the beginning when even I get questions like, you know, where the Strandbergs come from? Do you buy them all? Or there's nothing that people are trying to hide. It's just like, for anyone out there that's curious, it's like you've got to show a company that not only do you value and are loyal to their brand, maybe that's by buying a couple of their instruments or products or whatever, but you've got to have value for them as well. And in my position, I've been lucky to kind of, I think there was like a wave of Instagram content creators that were guitarists at the time that I've kind of rode the wave of somehow, because I've seen like a handful of guitarists that have kind of grown in size exponentially, and companies do really value that. So to anyone out there that's like curious, like how do you get the free instruments? It's like, well, the free gear and the free instruments isn't the end goal. It's to open a dialogue with a company that you respect and that you are fond of and you like the products. Like the free guitar or whatever it might be, it might not even be free, or the thing, it's usually not free anyway, because they might send you the guitar, but they want 9 videos making with it and a photo to promote it. And if you don't have the means to promote that good enough, i.e. like an audience size or something like that, and then they might not see like the business relationship working out. It has to be like a two-way street rather than just send me the instrument and I'll play it, because they don't know what you're going to do with the instrument. But if they can see like you've got a following and that you're consistent, like you have a lot more value then as an artist to a company, which is what I've been able to luckily do with Strandberg and stuff, because there's people who I know that have said like, oh, I want to be a Strandberg artist, but I don't have a guitar yet. Do you think that's okay? And while to some, like Ola's a great guy, so maybe he'd be cool with it. Maybe he'd be like, yeah, here's a Strandberg. But to a lot of companies, it's kind of like, well, you've not done anything to prove your loyalty to our brand yet. You've not made an investment in us. Do you believe in our product? So that's why, like, I went 2.5, 3 years before even asking Strandberg, let's open a dialogue. It wasn't even, can I have a guitar to make videos with? It was like,
right,
I'm interested in supporting the brand, and I really love the products. Hence why I've bought 2 of the guitars out of my own money, and that's why I've been playing. And also, like, there's no other videos of guitars like by other brands on my feed. Not because like I'm in any contractual deal with Strandberg. I don't have a contract with Strandberg. The important thing is I love playing them. So
right.
I don't want to play anything else in a way other than like acoustics, like, because Strandberg don't even do acoustics. So it's kind of like, yeah.
That's great advice though. I mean, that's something that I've passed along through the years too. I said, hey, if your ultimate goal, if you know that this is your brand of amplifier or guitar or guitar picks or whatever it is, and you like act like you're already on the team, you should have something from the product from the product line, and you should be at least speaking, up about it regularly and to some degree to kind of even get practice. Like especially if you're in the very beginning stages and you're trying to sort it out. Hey, just start, be natural, be organic about it, and just be like, hey, look, this is, I've looked at all the guitar picks in the world and I think this one's the dopest. So, speaking of which, I want to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about guitar picks. Sometimes this conversation doesn't come till late in the conversation, but it's good because it's been natural for us to chat about all these things. But
yeah, man, for sure.
Can you run us back actually, and when did you start playing? What was your first? What do you remember about your first couple of guitar picks? Did anybody inspire you to choose one over another? And how did you get to play what you play now?
Okay. So initially when I first started learning, I was playing just a Fender kind of, like the big, I have one here. It's not a Fender one, but it's a bare knuckle pickups one actually.
Oh, cool.
Just the big classic shape, big in the hand, a lot of material here. Just learned playing whatever thickness. There wasn't a particular one at the time. And it was only when I started getting guitar lessons from my guitar teacher, who was like really big into like Paul Gilbert, John Petrucci, that kind of thing. Because before then I was playing like Muse and U2, stuff like that. So Metallica, I got introduced to Metallica and that sort of thing from my guitar teacher. And I don't know if you've heard of them, but Paul Gilbert had a really cool line of signature guitar picks with Ibanez. And they came out in like two colors. There was like a blue one with his signature in pink, and there was like a pearloid one, like ivory color. And they were like halfway between a Jazz 3 and just a typical classic shaped like plectrum kind of thing. And I used those for like all of my teenage years. Like I must have gone through packs and packs and packs of those, just shredding them down because they weren't the thickest material. So I'd just shred them down like over, because I used to practice like 6 hours a day.
Wow.
So I'd shred them down in like 3 weeks and then just get the next one out. And then my friend, when I went to college, he was like, have you heard of Jazz 3? Like picks? And I was like, jazz? I don't play jazz, so I don't need a Jazz 3 pick. So he gave me one, and it was tiny, like this absolute tiny thing. And I put it in my hands, and like there was this much material sticking out the end. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to hold this a bit different. So I did get used to it, but it wasn't a comfortable change. And I wasn't that fussed about them at the start. I could take them or leave them. But eventually it was John Petrucci's Jazz 3, the black ones, which had like a shield logo, and there was like a semi-gloss tip at the bottom, and I think they were like a mil thick and quite solid, that I really started enjoying. And that was when I kind of changed the Jazz 3 style picks. And to eventually, that was like about 4 or 5 years ago, and maybe a bit, even 3 years ago. And to come full circle about the endorsements thing, it was Stone Age Guitar Picks, who are a guy called Matt runs it, and he is just like a one-man guy, like band operation kind of thing, and he just hand makes these picks, and they're usually made from agate, or I think I'm saying that right, and it's they're Jazz 3 shaped. And I thought I would try one, so I bought one. And I believe, I don't think it was this one, but it was another one that I bought from him. And cool. Yeah, so the thing is
that agate?
Yeah. So the thing is with these kind of picks is they don't wear down, which had always been a problem for me. I'd get a perfect pick, and it would, like 3 or 4 days in, like the beveling would be perfect. And like by the 7th day, it would just turn into like a coin, like a circle edge. So having something like this, knowing that because he's really, 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 I have no idea how he does it, but he like does all the beveling himself, handmade. which is, I imagine, very hard to do with stone. But having a perfect bevel and knowing no matter like how much I'm going to shred with this kind of thing, it's going to stay the same, was a really big plus. And the other big seller for me was just the fact that I knew I would be supporting someone in a similar position as me, not in the same industry. Well, in the same industry, but not the same field. Like he was making guitar picks and very small company. And we saw value. Like at the time, I'd only had, a couple thousand followers on Instagram. I'm going back to like 2017. And he himself had a couple thousand, maybe a bit more. And we just saw value in each other. And he was like, well, if I give you a pick, and 2 or 3 picks, like you can show them off in videos. And then obviously people will be, like, what's that pick you're playing? It looks really weird. That doesn't look like a typical jazz 3. So I've had a few, and this one here is my favorite. So it's still a jazz 3. And all of his picks are about 2 mil thick, maybe about 2.5 mil. This one's a little bit thinner. It's about 1.5. But I actually like the 2. I think this is 2.25 or something like that. And the way that it interacts with the strings has just been kind of like a game changer, because I'd never like pick tone or anything like that. I'd never considered before. Like I just wanted to be able to alternate pick easily. So when I'd began considering like, well, what does it actually sound like hitting the strings? When I got the stone picks, I was like, wow, like there's so much more top end here, and it feels different. Like it felt different to hit the strings with the stone rather than like, Tortex or plastic or whatever material. It was nice to kind of have something different. And like I say, people always ask, do they wear down? And I've used this pick was like all of Escapism, and even the first EP that I released in 2018 or something. And it's still just, if I lose this, I'm very sad, but I've not lost it yet. So, that's the only downside. Like you have the whole perceived value thing we were saying before.
Yeah.
When you buy one of these for 20 quid or $25, whatever the conversion is, this little bit of material gets converted from something you lose in a pocket to, I'm going to keep this thing close and I'm not going to lose it. It begins to matter a lot more in a way.
Absolutely.
That's
cool, man. I haven't had anybody on. I think you're the first person on the pod that has been a Stone Age guitar picks guy. I mean, there's a few other people that have got other picks, and that try stuff out or use stuff, but like it's cool to have somebody that is exclusively like using that picks and are really tuned into it, because you're right. The tonality, the timbre, there's a lot more top end information from the Stone picks, or from something that resilient. Like if you have metal or brass or something like that, there's the top end information that comes through is there, which in some ways can be great, because that information isn't there with a dulled down pick, and so you might have to EQ or find it, where you can roll off top end, if need be, in a amplifier or a fractal patch or something like that. But it's harder to try to add that information to it. So so there's a certain kind of rasp that happens, right?
Yeah.
And you sound like you're able to utilize that to your benefit.
Yeah. If the only thing is, like, you have to be a bit more considerate with things such as like picking angles, because especially on the wound strings, if you're not careful and you're more of like a diagonal picker, which is kind of like what I am, then you have to be a bit more mindful about the rotation the pick is hitting the strings at, because it does have a tendency to want to slide along like the wound. And you know how you can get like pick slides?
Yep.
That can sometimes come through in the actual tone. But if you're mindful, and that's something Matt, who makes the picks, has always said, like, you do have to be a bit more considerate with how you pick, but if you get it right, and it just, yeah, it not only feels just as good as like the best Jazz 3 picks out there made by Dunlop or whoever, you know, it can feel even better. And it might not be for everyone. Not everybody wants to spend $20 or whatever on a guitar pick. But for those that do, you know, I've had people who've asked me about them and then ordered one and then say, you know, oh my God, like, yeah, like this is game changing. It sounds so different than plastic or something. But yeah.
Cool. I've got one here.
Oh, nice, man. So that looks like the bevel on that looks really nice.
He sent me a couple. I've got a couple from him. I think I have one that's kind of like, this one's really cool too.
Yeah, that's a nice one. That's the other thing. It's a unique thing all of a sudden, because it's not just your red Jazz 3 with the grip on it. It's
right.
This is the pick that I know I like, and then for more intricate playing, I've got this one which is thinner and with a more aggressive kind of edge to it. So they bring on their own personalities, and now and again, like, you know, I'll grab. It's not like all of the other picks have gone in the bin. It's like I still have, you know, like the Flow by Dunlop, and I quite like this pick for acoustic tracking because it's quite a lot thinner, obviously, than Stone. It has more give. So that's the only one thing I would probably say is the Stone. If you like the sound of Stone on the strings themselves, then you'll be fine. But it comes through a lot when you're tracking acoustic. So some parts I did with Stone picks, and then more of the strumming I did with a regular, just because that's what strumming they'll have used. Thinner, big picks, very thin, that just glide across the strings. There's not much resistance there. It's easy to strum. And like the picked lines still sound great with Stone, but it's nice to have the option to kind of go back and forth. And it's often overlooked that one of the most important things about the guitar is the tool you're using to make the sound. So it's been it was my first kind of business relationship with a company. So it was a big step, you know, that realization, like, oh my God, someone does believe in what I'm doing. So that was nice. And off the back of that, then obviously I've been able to kind of grow as an artist. Awesome. Yeah, man. How do you like the Stone Age picks? Because I imagine you've got a lot of. I've got
a handful of them. I mean, you're spot on with your description around it. I think if you find the right angle and everything, they're percussive. They have a higher end tonality, and if you can deal with there's a lot of thick picks out there, but it's really about like does the tone, can you get along with it? Does it speak to you? And if you're a Jazz 3 guy, I mean, already like you're already in the right market. But some nylon jazz players are not going to vibe with it because the nylon, it's warmer and it has, it's slippery. It's more slippery. Yeah. Yes. And it's kind of like, I always say there's generally two kind of classes. I mean, there's a lot of different variations of picks, but whether they're thin or thick, it's usually you have the class of player that is interested in a little bit of resistance. So this pick, the Stone Age pick, would be in the class of resistance, even though it's a fast pick, because of the material. It adds a little bit of resistance and a tonality of something that has maybe even more resistance to it, actually. And then there's the other kind of class where you're in usually beveled, like the Flow series and like the classic big stubbies and stuff like that. They're more made for string release and like less string noise. Right. So Stone might be Stone and metal and brass might all be towards the top of string noise potentiality. Right. But if you hold it the right way, then that can be to your advantage. right? But for the novice, it may take a minute to sort out, like, okay, how do I even use this? Again, it's kind of extra audible frequency information that happens, and to some it may just be like this freaking noise. You're like, I don't want it, so like Tortex players, they tend that, because the Tortex is a square edge that's rounded off through a little bit of tumbling. That's like the classic. Most people are into some form of that because there's a little bit of resistance there. There's a little bit of on the edge, depending on how you hold it, the whole thing. But your molded Jazz 3 out of Ultex, that's a fast string release thing, right? Like that's quieter, versus something that has more chirp or more bark or bite. So this is in the bark and bite category because of the material, albeit even though it has dope ass bevels and is a fairly fast pick and has decent release. Some of them are a little bit edgier, than others, right? So that the tighter the edge at the, then that potential for more noise. You see like brands like Gravity, where they manufacture, it's a really fast pick, but they manufacture an edge that is like, it's like harsh, So a similar vibe. And I think that's born out of kind of wanting your cake and eating it too. So you want that top end information, you want a little bit of rasp, but you want a pick that is fast and releases from the string. So yeah, I don't know. I like it. I really appreciate what they've been doing. And I love the uniqueness of the picks, right? Because they're all kind of their own thing.
Yeah, for sure. It, like you were saying, because they are handmade, every single one, along with looking different, every single one just feels different, even if they're the same thickness, because he's hand beveling them with like a diamond, whatever it is, some high-tech thing. Even if he might want his best to bevel exactly the same as the pick he made previously, but something might just be slightly different in it. It might just play completely different, be a faster pick and a smoother feel, whereas the next pick he makes might have a slightly more fine point to the edge of it, and it might, have more resistance and feel like a thinner pick, even though they might be the same thickness. The edge might make you feel like it's a thin pick, like this pick it feels very thin because the edge on it just goes to like a pencil point, basically. Whereas this one is more of like until you're at the very end, it's quite chunky, which is, it's a different vibe depending on what part I'm playing or how I'm feeling. There's some days where I prefer this one, some days where I prefer this one, and then but yeah, man, it's nice to be able to have the means to be able to just experiment and see which I prefer.
100%. Yeah, it's one of the. I have a bowl of picks around at all times, right? So I've always got like random stuff that I've worked on, stuff that are my favorite picks and whatnot. So I'm always kind of picking up different things, especially if I'm in a open mood. I'm not trying to get a particular thing figured out, that I won't go to an Old Faithful. I will just pick up, that I haven't picked that pickup for a while, that looks funky, I've got all these odds and ends. So and sometimes it inspires the flexibility or the lack of flexibility of a pick that I pick up, or just the tonality, and because of the characteristic will make me approach the guitar or in a funkier way that I wouldn't have done if I just went to my standard. My ultimate standard, really, I go back and forth between the 73 flow, Tortex flow, and the 420 flow. So 4.2, super thick, super fast, like super liquidy, lots of string release, and then a thin, flexible, snappy, kind of more type of sound on the strings. And I probably use the 73 flow the most. Yeah. But I being in this position of, working for Dunlop and then having a pick podcast, I like I could, you leave me alone in a room with any pick, I'll eventually be like, oh, this is a really great pick because that's what I have, you know, like
Yeah, man.
I'll adjust to it eventually. But
Yeah.
so I'd like to kind of start to wrap it up, but I want to know more. I want to know a little bit from you about like what you've been listening to recently. Like, is there anything that stands out? Are you listening to anybody that maybe we don't know, the world doesn't know as much about, and that we should check out an album, a song, or anything like that?
Well, yeah, other than like Leprous, who I mentioned before, because I don't know about you, but because I'm in the field of like instrumental progressive music, I don't find myself listening to lots of it. Sometimes I do, you know, like sometimes I'll listen to Pliny, and all those kind of guys and David stuff. But more often than not, I will listen to bands like Haken and Leprous, who are still prog in that kind of field, but not necessarily, you know, here's a sweet guitar melody. It's like sometimes I like to just chill it out and have some vocals once in a while. So yeah, Leprous for sure. Like their new album is amazing, and I think they deserve even more recognition than they get. They're on top of their games. It's like it's one of those bands where you can listen to a song, and until you peel back the layers, you don't realize like how insanely good each person is at their instrument. Like the drummer is world class. Like I've watched some of his drum playthroughs. He's just amazing. Just got pocket, groove, just he's got everything. And yeah, Haken guys, I'll always be fond of as well. Like they've not dropped anything new recently, but they're always just a staple, you know, that I'm spinning. And
great band.
Yeah. You know, and Rich, one of the guitarists, is a fellow Strandberg player, so it's been nice to kind of get to know him a little bit as well, and kind of, you know, it's good to have just a small point about the endorsements. It's like it opens up like the inner family almost to like the artist roster and stuff, and you get to know people that you wouldn't really know. So yeah, that's cool. But mainly those two. I've had Spirit Box's new album on. I don't listen to that much heavy music like Spirit Box, but it's really good. It's definitely deserves everything that they're getting right now from that album. Yeah, production, musicianship, everything. And Courtney's an insane singer. So yeah, there'd be Haken, Leprous, and Spirit Box are probably my top three recommendations.
You got any non-metal? Is there any like favorites, like kind of softer or even maybe non-guitar music that you really prefer?
Yeah, well, there's I don't know if you've heard of a woman called Esperanza Spalding.
Oh, she's amazing. You listen to Esperanza?
Yeah,
that's cool, man. Oh,
yeah.
So tell me about that.
So I listened to her. I believe it was her first album that she released. I remember the artwork more than anything. The picture, I think she's like got a picture of her with like the afro going on. It looks sick. And then she has the one song. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the fact that in some songs she's like doing a bass solo while singing along with the bass solo, and she's, oh man, like, come on,
incredible.
Leave some for the rest of us, like.
Yeah, exactly. That's I saw her live at Jazz Fest years back. I was working with Ani DeFranco for a short while, and she was a couple stages away, and we finished up and ran over there to go watch her, and we're just like in awe. I mean, just and on all these levels, super classy, and the talent. When you see somebody like that on an upright bass and singing and doing things that you're just like, like you said, like leave what? Hey, you're soaking up at all the thing. I mean, there's nothing left for us.
Yeah,
that's it's incredible.
It almost like doesn't even register. It's like how good that they are. It's like they're doing stuff that's like otherworldly, alien stuff. It's like, you know,
making it look
like,
easy.
Just
like,
chilling, just playing some tunes. And it's just, so yeah,
that's cool.
She's sick, man.
Yeah, well, that's definitely good for anybody out there listening. You want a break from all your prog metal, go listen to Esperanza for a little bit. Click on a few videos and see her essence too, because she's world class.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, man.
That's cool. Well, hey, dude, Connor, thank you so much for your time, man, and carving it out. I know you got a lot of other things going on, so it's cool.
My pleasure.
Spend some time with me and with the podcast. So
yeah,
definitely keep in touch, and let's do it again, like maybe in the next year, something when you're coming close to your next EP, whatever that might be. Maybe you're writing one about working from home and how dope it is. It might not be as heavy. You might be like a little more happy about it, but I would like to hear that EP if that's the case. And I'm looking forward to the track with you and your lady. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.
Players Pick Podcast, Picks and Perspective with Chrys Johnson.